You're listening to Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars begins now.
All right, well, hello, everybody. I'm Eric Vansel.
And I'm Daryl Sanders.
And we're your hosts for this show. And it's Monday. It's Memorial Day if you're in the U.S. So we want to take this time to remember all of our fallen troops. After all, that's what this whole holiday, if you want to call it a holiday, is about.
Absolutely.
But the other thing that it's about is Visions. Visions Season 2. We have been reviewing it for the last 3 weeks now. This is the 4th episode that we're into it, and it excuse me. It's called I Am Your Mother. And I have to say, it's funny because the name of the studio escapes me. It's like AA something, like Armin or something like that. It's actually a British studio. And I have to say, for me, I liked it. I actually liked this episode. I thought it was good. I thought I was going to hate it. It turns out that we were always comparing this thing to Wallace and Gromit. Turns out they're the same studio that actually did Wallace and Gromit. They've done a lot of really interesting and big, animations or whatever. But I have to say that overall, I actually enjoyed this episode. It was another one that was a little emotional at points. And I think one of the things that it also fixed, that the last one also fixed, but I think this one even more so, that you and I have always been bothered when it comes to this show, is context. It's like, I actually understood it. I didn't have to figure out any weird symbolism. I didn't have to, it was a very obvious episode. And of course, goes without saying, as is mostly the case in this show, the animation was stunning. So it's not about me, though. Everybody wants to know what you thought of this thing.
Man,
Oh, by the way, you're frozen on the screen.
Am I?
Yeah, you are. Oh, there you go. You're kind of there. But we hear you, though. I guess that's the important thing. As long as there's something that occupies that square and we hear you. Just try not to move too much. It probably means that your Wi-Fi signal might be a little... Now, here's the funny thing. Before you actually reveal it, Ronaldo says, hello, I'm going to guess you hated this. He goes on to say it's called Aardman Animations Limited from Bristol, England. Thank you, Ronaldo, Ronaldo's kind of like our unofficial producer in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And you're not...
I'm not frozen anymore?
No, you weren't,
Or
but now you
maybe
are.
I am.
Well, now you're back. I think it's just going to be the way it's going to be on this one.
Yeah, I think this episode, though, was very... It was one of those... Like, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good either to me. It was... I'm with you. Like, I got all the context. I got the story very easily. I guess it's one of those cutesy little stories or whatever, but it just didn't do any. I think it just didn't ring any bells for me. It didn't, there were some things that I thought were cool, like some of the humor in there was awesome. Like the Wookiee pulling the arms off that little doll was hilarious.
Yes. There were actually 3 things that I thought were hilarious during this episode. That was one of them. The other one was when the little Death Star laser. That was the second one.
That was priceless.
I was cracking up. There was exactly 3 points where I actually cracked up, like out loud. Like it wasn't an inner chuckle. I mean, it was a serious, like I was cracking up.
Right.
The Wookiee pulling the arms off of the doll. That was one. The little Death Star laser that came out, that was the second. And the third one actually occurred earlier, and that was when the guy was like on TV making his announcement, and one of the little Jawas was like scavenging the part and basically like killed the signal.
And cut it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was hilarious. So there was definitely humor, but I can understand because I was trying to think in my head, like, okay, does he hate this? Does he like it? And I think a lot of
The
it.
other,
Well, go ahead.
oh, so the other funny one was when that guy was talking, and he was like, "Yeah, she's such a," and then the Wookiee was like, he like started growling,
Oh
almost
yeah,
as if it was
yeah,
a bleep.
kind of
Yeah,
like a
I
bleep.
thought that
Yep,
was funny too. Yeah,
that was hilarious, and it was really funny too that just overall, the overbearing mom. I think everybody can relate to that. I think that the reason why though you might have been like, is because this was obviously made for kids. This is actually more in the spirit of Star Wars
yeah,
Resistance, I think, where
exactly. And that's the vibe I got, and that's what I was like, it was all right.
but I
Like I
mean,
had like a little kid or something like that we would enjoy, but
right.
you know,
But I actually think that overall, though, if you just take it from the story, the overall just, the presentation, the humor, everything like that, I thought it was a really good, concise story. Now, Ronaldo says, I loved it very much. It was just a little story in a corner of the universe. Not the greatest thing I've seen, but the message of the story is what got me. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that the whole idea that the daughter was kind of embarrassed because the mom was just like maybe a little bit too involved and everything. And we can all
and she
relate
was
to this.
quirky. You know, she
Quirky.
yeah, they didn't have the like you could tell that they weren't wealthy like the other ones, so they were kind of impoverished a little bit. So she was just kind of trying to remain low key with everything
Yeah.
and not draw too much attention to that fact. But then like bras are dropping out of the sky, and everybody's just like, okay,
Well, and it also had a little bit of that, maybe the element of the Karate Kid, or I'm trying to think of what else, where you have basically the Pretty in Pink actually is another good example, where you basically have the person who doesn't have the greatest means, isn't wealthy, that's around a bunch of wealthier people, and that is basically bullied by those wealthier people. You see this in Pretty in Pink.
mm-hmm.
You see this in The Karate Kid, where Daniel, he moves in, but he's like from Reseda, and he likes this girl that's from, where were they supposed to be from? Well, it's,
Encino was it?
yeah, it might be. It might
Well,
be. And I think it was just one of those things to where it was that kind of thing. It really had Pretty in Pink vibes to me from that sense, because Molly Ringwald's character Andy in that series, or that movie rather, definitely was, from the wrong side of the track, so to speak, and was bullied by, the rich girl or whatever. And that's kind of what was happening in this one too, and even the parent kind of had that same
mm-hmm.
sort of prejudice against them. And, they had the nicest
Yeah,
ship or whatever, pod racer or whatever, and I mean, the mother and daughter basically had this just crazy square, I don't even know, almost like
it's
RV or
like a
something.
box.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
almost like the board box,
Yeah. Yeah.
like the board cube,
And that's
but just rust.
right. And it was just one of those things where obviously it wasn't the best thing. And of course, it ended up beating out the really sleek, cool pod racer that the rich girl and her mom had. So, and I thought it was a really interesting twist too. I thought the whole idea of the fact that this thing was okay, it's a family race, the kind of thing that you would normally see maybe at a school or something, or perhaps a community event. Hey, we're going to have this family race or whatever. I thought that was a really cool spin on the whole pod racing thing. And I thought that was really nice. So, I mean, for me, the fact that it was a little bit geared more towards younger kids didn't really bother me, because there was a lot that you can really glean from this thing. And it wasn't so terrible and sappy that I was just like, all right, man, I can't deal with that. And for me, that's sort of where Star Wars Resistance was a little bit. I mean, right when they were about to lose me, they would bring me back in because they would have some cool characters. They would have some compelling storylines. They would have a little bit more of at least young adult themes. And
Mm-hmm.
I could always latch onto that a little bit. And that's sort of where this was. You know, I didn't find it overly silly. It wasn't like the first season when you had that dude like Jabba the Hutt rock band thing or whatever. That's actually what
Oh
I
my
thought this
God.
episode was going to be. I thought this episode was going to be more in that vein. And especially when I saw the type of Wallace, it's hilarious that I actually said, oh, this is Wallace and Gromit like animation. Well, it really was,
Mm-hmm.
because, again, it's the same studio that did Wallace and Gromit.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that's what made the animation look so cool because it was actually done, and they kind of have an established brand, I guess, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
over there. So it looked good. It looked clean. It didn't look, too stop animation-y. I mean, it was well done. Um, I think, like I said, the humor is what kind of saved it for me. And the story was, like I said, it was a cute little story. Like I said, you could definitely tell it was made for kids, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, for what it was for, it did well, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where, again, and I think you have to compare it to the other elements of Visions, because it seems like you fall into one of three categories with Visions. You either have the extremely anime-like symbolism that you find
Hmm.
in a lot of Japanese anime, and they're dropping you in this thing. And the problem with that, which is why I think that you in particular were quite down on the show, especially in season 1, is that you're like, okay, I don't know what I'm watching. I just
Right.
plain don't understand what I'm watching. And even from my
Yeah.
perspective, who I am at least a casual anime fan, I was sitting there watching a lot of those episodes going, okay, I get it, but it's almost like I have to work too hard for it. You know, it's like I might be
Yeah,
like
and that's the
one step
thing.
ahead, but it's almost like, okay, even though I understand what's going on, I'm working too hard for this.
Exactly. Exactly. It's the thing. It's like I shouldn't have to work too hard for Star Wars stuff. Like Star Wars has always been a relatively simple concept. And we've talked about that so much when our what is Star Wars is the broad strokes, the overall, like it's clear. So I shouldn't have, like you said, I shouldn't have so hard to get what they're trying to communicate. And so a lot of times, like the animation may be too wild and all over and the story is all over the place, and so it just makes for a big mess, honestly. But with stories like this, or the ones from last week, I mean, the one we reviewed last week, um, the stories were simple enough where it's like, okay, you're not working too hard to try to figure it out, and the animation is so well done, and you can craft these characters a little bit easier when that happens. So, um, it's then that makes Visions tolerable for me.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I'll even go a step further than that. In that it's not even so much that the storyline has to be very simple and laid out in a
Yeah.
simplistic manner. It's just you need the context. You need to understand.
Hmm.
You know, you shouldn't be spending the episode trying to one figure out where
Decipher.
you are. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Decipher the thing, right? Because on one hand, you're trying to figure out what all this symbolism means. Like the first episode of this season is a perfect example of that. I mean, it was a
Hmm.
fairly obvious. I will give them this. Unlike a lot of episodes in season 1, it was obvious where they were going. It was obvious. I guess the story was obvious, but there was a lot of symbolism that you had to decipher in order to really gain any kind of meaningful enjoyment out of it. And for some people that might speak to them. They might go, "Hey, this is exactly what I'm looking for in this. I'm glad to see
Mhm.
that I could get this in the Star Wars universe. Whereas for
True.
us, I think that we're on two sides of the coin, where the only difference being that I'm probably more of an anime fan than you are. But
Yeah, definitely.
both of us, I think, want context, and I think both of us don't want to fight too hard to figure out the episode so that we can enjoy it, you know? I don't want to watch this like 6 times in order to go, oh yeah, now I understand what this is.
Right. Especially with something so short too. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like they have time, so it's to flush everything out. So it's like, okay, you give me this 17-minute episode or what have you. Okay, get to it and let me understand like what's going on here. If you're gonna make it that brief.
Well, I mean, I think, and again, I think you and I could agree that we loved. Now, remember the Clone Wars short before the Clone Wars things came out? I forgot,
Hmm.
Urasawa or something. Whoever it was that actually did that. That was actually done in Japanese anime style. Guess
Hmm.
what? It was easy to understand. You know, you didn't have to sit there and try to crawl through and take your literary machete and try to cut through the meaning of everything that was going on. Ronaldo says the writing was made for kids, but the message was made in a way that people from all ages can enjoy and understand. I 100% agree with that. I 100% agree that it was very much a universal message. It's very much something that everybody, no matter what race, culture, age, whatever, it doesn't really
Hmm.
matter. Everybody can relate to the situation that you saw in this episode without
Absolutely.
question. Let's see. He goes on to say, I love how the Wookiees look in this episode.
The wikis were funny. I mean,
Yeah, I
even in
mean,
the little.
well, the whole animation actually, and again, I mean, this is another thing that I think that um I really enjoyed about this episode and the last episode in particular. And if Visions would continue this, I would actually be a straight up fan of Visions. Right now, I'm a fan of certain elements of Visions, and I'm a fan of certain episodes of Visions, but I can't say that I am a blanket Visions fan, and I know you won't say that. So
No.
I think that what it is that these two episodes really feel like they take place in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's also another key point is that you have to make sure that while you're giving these animation companies the license to kind of create their own stories, you do still kind of want it to have that thread of like, okay, this I should be able to feel Star Wars in this at some point. Um, Not just because you pull out, a lightsaber or what have you, but it
Right.
should it should really just like, okay, like I could see this as a story in a movie or an animation show or something like that, and make me care, you know. So
Well, I'll go
I
even
don't
one
know.
further than that. Um, Not only do I agree, but I think that this episode in particular, and you alluded to this, did a really good job in making it feel like Star Wars without Jedi, without Sith, without epic
Hmm.
space battles, without. I mean, this is really more of a microcosm of the Tatooine pod racer scene from the Phantom Menace. But
It's
yet,
almost kind of remind me of Mandalorian. Like this could be a Mandalorian
yes,
episode almost.
yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with that. David joins us. He says, "Hello, gentlemen. Sorry I'm late. It's okay. There's a link in the description to buy me a blue milk. You can pay your fine for being late there."
Nice.
uh, he said, "I had to watch the episode." Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of a prerequisite, I guess. If you don't see the episode, it's kind of pointless to do this. Hey, thank goodness it's only like 15 minutes, right? He says, "I
Right,
loved it.
exactly.
It was funny, lighthearted, and friendly." And that's exactly it, man. I mean, it was
Yeah,
all those things.
yeah, yeah. There you hit the nail right on the head, and uh, Appreciate you joining us tonight, even coming off of your birthday party. He
Oh,
still found time to
when was his
come.
birthday?
What tomorrow's his birthday, I believe, but
Okay.
he was celebrating it today. But yeah, man. So happy birthday to David.
Yeah, happy birthday to David. Glad we're not reviewing Andor right now. I might not maybe have warm feelings about.
Yeah, David would have probably
I should get
cursed his
it's
day.
too bad that Pedro Pascal's not like on Cameo or something. We could send him hey man, give him a happy birthday in the Andor character. That would be awesome. But David goes on to say, he says, I love the flying porta potty line. Yeah, that was good. I love the
Yeah.
baby Chewbacca ripping the arms off of that
Yeah.
toy. Of course,
Yeah.
Ronaldo shares his happy birthday greetings as well. Yeah, there's a lot of really hilarious things that were, and I think we should point this out. It was Star Wars humor. This was
Yeah.
not, some weird, like it wasn't British humor. It wasn't anime, like Japanese anime style humor. It wasn't Marvel humor. It was
Marvel. Yeah.
It was actually Star Wars humor.
Yeah. I mean, especially with the whole Wookiee thing, because like you really kind of have to know the whole gist about the Wookiees pulling people's arms out of their socket. Like that's
Yes.
kind of their
Yes.
trademark thing. So for him to like intimidate those other guys by pulling them off a stuffed teddy bear or a little stuffed animal, man, that was just like, all right.
Well, just to review really quick, I mean, the three things that stood out to me from a comedic level right away, like literally the three things that had me cracking up, like out loud, not just a chuckle, not just I'm internally finding it funny. I mean, these are things that actually made me crack up. Was the first one when the little Jawa, in the middle of the broadcast, scavenges this part and it kills the broadcast. I thought that was funny because, again, and you were talking about it earlier about the, ripping the arms out of the socket. This is very subtle Star Wars humor. This is the kind of almost Easter egg-ish kind of a thing going, right? The second one, of course, was, yes, the ripping the Wookiee ripping the arms off of the doll and all that. That was, not only was that funny from a situational perspective, but it was also funny as an Easter egg because we know that that's what Wookiees do. And then, of course, the third thing, which both Daryl and I alluded to at the beginning of the show, was when they popped out and there was like this little Death Star and it did like the little, triangular laser thing and, was shooting at the ship. That was funny too.
Yeah, man.
That was really hilarious. And, it's nice when you get these kind of things that pay homage to what came before, but yet give us a really unique story. Because honestly, if this was an actual series with these characters, I would probably tune in. I would at least give the first season a chance.
And the fact that the main character, her name is Annie.
Yeah,
it's kind of like the whole Anakin Skywalker thing too, so that was another one.
Well, honestly, that's what I thought was going to happen. Like, it didn't really pick up on me that it was a girl at first, and it was a Twi'lek, or the Tortunga. What, I don't know. Ronaldo had to help us out. Whatever that other species that is kind of like Twi'leks, but not quite. But yeah, at first, when you just hear the name and you read the synopsis, you think that it's going to be a little bit of a spin on the Anakin Skywalker thing. But it actually isn't, which I thought was really cool. And again, I mean, I thought the animation was just stunning. And not only was it great animation in the style of Wallace and Gromit, which of course the studio did, but it felt Star Wars-ish, I mean, it felt like a Star Wars animated series. Ronaldo says, well, before we go, he says, the type of humor that fans would understand, but also it's written in a way that casual viewers can also enjoy. He goes on to say, I would like to see more of this. This is actually a good point. I mean, I didn't really think about it in the middle of this. And then Ronaldo also says, to Gruda. Thank you, Ronaldo. Ronaldo always, He's like our encyclopedia, man. He's our research department. People have said that to me before, well, do you guys research everything, or do you have somebody who does it? I'm like, yeah, we got a viewer that does it. It's great. But it's one of those things, right? Yeah, right. We need people to donate to our channel so we can pay Ronaldo. I'm sure Ronaldo wouldn't mind. But
I know, right?
It's one of those things that, again, I wouldn't mind seeing more of these characters. It felt like Star Wars. It was something that was remarkable because you didn't have lightsabers, you didn't have blasters, you didn't have space battles, you didn't have the main characters. You had something that felt very Star Wars-ish without all that. All right, so now you were going to say something.
Well, first, I'll say, hey, Ronaldo, since you've seen these already, what are we in for next week? And while he's probably answering that question, Eric, what would you rate this episode?
Well, we also had to leave this up. So far, we've had Ronaldo and David chatting. So Ronaldo and David must weigh in on how they would rate this as well. Sure. So Ronaldo, you got a lot here. You got to tell us what we're in for the next episode. You think we're gonna like it? We're gonna hate it? Give us a little bit of a preview. But you also got to rate this episode for us. David, you just have to rate this episode for us. Wow, rating wise, I don't know. You know what? I'm gonna give it a solid 7.
Okay.
I'm gonna give it a 7 because, again, look, we could say this about the one thing that you cannot fault in this show, from the very first episode of season 1 all the way onward, you cannot fault the animation. The animation, no matter where you land on the actual storylines of the series itself, the animation is pretty much stunning. Pretty much across the board, no matter what style they're doing this in. But I think that the story was really good. I think that, again, I could rate this thing higher. I could give it an 8. I could even give it a 9. But the problem is that this now, look, I'm giving Empire Strikes Back a 10. I'm giving things like A New Hope probably like an 8.5 or 9. I don't know. I have to go back and look at our what is Star Wars series reviews. But I can't give an episode of Visions the same rating as I'm giving these, right?
It's just not right, huh?
Unless it knocks it out of the park in some way. And look, the last episode did. I think we actually gave that like an 8 or 8.5 or something like that. I know both of us gave it the same rating, and it was either an 8 or 8.5. I remember that. But this episode, I thought it was solid. I thought it was good. I thought it had a lot of things that make Star Wars great.
Mm-hmm.
But, it was a solid episode. So, like I said, I'm going to give it a solid 7. All right.
Okay.
Now it's your turn.
I think for I have 2, because I think I look at it from the lens of like what it is and then what it was designed for. So
right. That's a good point.
Because it was designed for more of a younger age variety, I think it was a good 7.5. I'm with you on that. But if you're just asking my personal, like, just
like kind of your enjoyment or whatever out of it, maybe?
Yeah, my enjoyment. Yeah, I'll probably give it a 4.
All right.
Just because it really didn't do anything for me. But the message was cool. I get it. And the animation was really nice. The humor was cool. But like I said, it really didn't move me that much. So I'm giving it a 4.
All right. Well, David basically said, I haven't liked the animation I've seen so far. Thank you all. I'm actually surprised by that. Because the animation in a lot of these episodes is just incredible. Even the first episode of this series, it was really different. It was, again, it was a little all over the place. It was, again, no matter where you land on the show, it's hard to actually separate that too. Like, just rating something totally objectively without putting your personal feelings about the series of the episode into that as well. It's kind of tough. Ronaldo, unsurprisingly, gives it a 9.9 because he's a big fan of Visions. He says the next episode is fantastic, but it goes full-on anime storytelling again. He says, but I think you'll like it. It feels like a good old Jedi versus Sith story. And I think for this type of story, the animation works. So, all right, that's
Okay.
a lot to digest and to take in. We'll see, of course, if you guys check us out
I do have
next.
to give Ronaldo credit. He gives us a lot of detail without saying anything.
Yeah.
Kudos to you, Ronaldo.
Yeah, Ronaldo, that's really good because usually, I mean, you probably do the same thing I do. I try not to watch these shows or these various episodes until like the day before or the day of our review. Like in this case, I actually watched this episode, I Am Your Mother episode, today. So, I try to keep it pretty much fresh. I try not to, because I mean, look, they're all up there right now. I could easily go watch I can go watch all of them. But I want to take in one at a time because I want to digest it. I want to, only focus on one episode at a time, and I don't want to do it too early.
No.
David says, 8 out of 10. The jokes landed, the characters were likable, the crazy mama was clutch despite her disrespectful daughter, the villains were good. I found myself rooting for the heroes. Totally agree. Unlike the Andor series, David and I are right there as far as this goes. I would totally concur with that. And he's really only giving it like 1 point higher than I am. The only reason why I'm giving it a 7 is because I've even seen better episodes of Visions than this. I thought the last episode of Visions was better. However, not by much. And I honestly think that these two episodes, episode 3 and the one we're reviewing today, episode 4, if Vision stayed within this context, and I don't necessarily mean this style, right? They could have the full-on Japanese anime style. They can go in a million different directions with this. But again, you give us context, you give us a good story, you give us a little bit of clarity and focus, I'm 100% there for you. And I'm sure you would probably agree with that.
Yeah. You got my vote.
All right, well, there you have it, guys. That's our review of Visions. They're only like 14-minute episodes, right? So, I mean,
yeah,
there have been a couple of times, though, that, we have gone on and stretched this out to our full show. But hey, yeah, full hour. But, we're over 30 minutes. We're doing good. The episode was only 14, so I think we're all right. It's a holiday, at least in the U.S. Right. So, before we go, though, David says, oh boy, this is way better than that stupid episode in the cave with that freaky-looking Sith Queen in the darkness.
Darkness.
Yeah, that would have been the first episode, I think. Ronaldo said, these reviews are great. We agree, they are great. And hopefully you guys can share them with all your friends and, maybe get them to watch this. I mean, I understand that the Visions reviews are going to be somewhat of a select audience, right? I mean, I don't think that they're going to be as popular, but I will say this. They pretty much average like 30 to 50 views per week. So while they might not hit huge in popularity, I mean, they're pretty steady. So I'm really surprised that as many people, I guess, are into this, which is probably a good thing, because if we're only getting 10 to 15 views a week, I know, Daryl, you would probably be like, all right, let's not do this anymore.
Yep.
See, analytics don't lie. Let's just stop doing it. Because we actually have to go back. I have to watch it. You watched it. We got to review the rest of the Bad Batch.
Mm-hmm.
Because we stopped at like episode, I want to say like 8 or 9 or something like that. Yeah, somewhere in there. And there's like, I don't know, like 12 or something like that. So we got, I think like 3 or 4 more episodes. We got a review of that. So we gotta do that at some point. So maybe when Visions is done, we'll go back and we'll take care of that. As far as Friday's episode, we haven't decided what we're going to talk about yet, have we? Have I forgotten?
Yet, my friend.
Okay, good.
Nope.
So you guys are going to want to check us out on Friday. Well, I mean, look, there's a lot of things that we can be discussing in Star Wars now. Last week, we did the whole, is the Acolyte going woke? And, we actually got a subscriber out of that episode. That was good. And a comment. So, people are responding to these things. So all I can say is if you're a subscriber and you've been a fan or even just a casual viewer and you enjoy this show, do a couple of things for me or for us. One, like the episode. So please take the time. It doesn't take very long. Just click the little like button while you're watching this thing. And then the second thing is, if you could actually share it and maybe get some of your friends into it. Look, we all know that there are people who are into Star Wars, right? There's a lot of people. I mean, these movies do like billions of dollars per year. And I really
somebody's going to see them.
Yeah, exactly. And I honestly think that unlike a lot of shows on YouTube, we're a lot different. We're not the same type of show. I mean, admittedly, maybe it's a little bit more selective, but I really think that a lot more people would enjoy our show than what are currently subscribed. So you guys could help us out a great deal by spreading the word. All you got to do is just share our videos on your social media pages, and that should help. All right? So with that, we will see you guys Friday night at 8 o'clock, as usual. Next Monday at 8, our plan is to review the 5th episode of Visions. Before we go, though, let's take this last chat in from David. He says, I thoroughly enjoyed the series about what real Star Wars is. I learned so much. I appreciate it. See, that's great. The real question is, did y'all see the greatest movie of 2023, Fast 10? I haven't seen it yet. No, I have not. And I am a fan of the Fast and Furious series. Granted,
as am I.
The first 2 were the ones.
Share David's overinflated opinion of it.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, and I'll break this down, and I'm sure David will have his opinions about it. We'll have to talk about it at another time. But 1 and 2 were the actual real movies. Okay, 1 and 2 were essentially crime dramas that were told in the background of racing. They were real, legitimate films. 3 was when it started to get a little bit more action adventure-y. Still fairly grounded, still good. Told us about the racing and stuff and with the Asian culture and everything. So that was actually kind of cool. I enjoyed Tokyo Drift quite a bit. Then once it got to 4 and 5, that was when you started to cross the threshold from actual, more like crime drama to we're getting a little bit more into an action adventure.
Mission Impossible.
Well, the Mission Impossible, I think, really started with 6. 6, 7, especially 8, 9, and presumably 10. I mean, when they're racing on the ice and there's a nuclear submarine, I mean, it's like, okay, this is, now we're into the more Marvel, like Avengers, Mission Impossible, that kind of thing. Like, okay, the government is actually trying to enlist these racers to help solve crimes. I mean, now we're getting a little bit more into the fantastic thing. That said, though, look, I'll be the first person to admit, I love every single one of them. I love some of them more, but I love every single one of them. Ronaldo says, are you taking suggestions for topics? Yes, we always take suggestions for topics. I'm glad you brought that up, Ronaldo. you, Ronaldo, or anybody that's watching this can always leave a suggestion for a topic in one of two places. There's the community tab that thankfully YouTube decided to open to smaller channels, thankfully. You can leave it in there, or just comment on our latest videos. So like on tonight's video, right? You know, you want to put a little blurb in there, just say, hey guys, I got an idea for a topic, and then put it in there. Like I said, we read all the comments. At least I do. We read all the comments. We respond to all the comments. And if you guys have topic ideas, we'd love to hear them, because after all, even though Daryl and I love to talk Star Wars every week, we do this for you guys. I mean, he and I could just call each other on the phone and do it. Right? I mean, and then we're good, because that's what we used to do. But we're putting this on YouTube because we want to include you all in the discussion. And so because of that, hey, if you have an idea for something you guys want to discuss, bring it on. Let's
Lay it out there.
Yeah, let's talk about it. And then David says, Daryl isn't allowed to say he's a fan of Fast and Furious, LOL. Friday's show should be a comparison between Andor and Fast 10. Which is better? Spoiler alert, it's not Andor. LOL.
I'm gonna let him have it.
What,
I'm gonna let him make it. It's his birthday. I'm gonna let him make it.
You know what? Yes. And I'll tell you what. The day that we start that Fast and Furious podcast, then we'll entertain that. But being that it's a Star Wars podcast,
he did include Andor in it, so I guess he tried to.
I mean, he tried to do that. But I'm just thinking that we would probably have to go with Andor just because of the subject matter, right? I mean,
right.
And it's a brilliant show. So, all right. Well, like I said, you guys haven't had a chance, definitely hit that like button, because it does help us with the YouTube algorithm. And hey, look, you guys know every YouTuber on the planet is telling you to hit the like button. So hit it for us, because you like us. And David's like, are you afraid Andor can't hold its own? No, we're not afraid that Andor can't hold its own. But I'll tell you what, pick that up when Andor Season 2 comes out. And Ronaldo says, Fast 10 is real cinema. Martin Scorsese, 2023.
God, delusional.
Yeah, well, you know what? Guys, it's not April 1st. It's May 31st. Yeah, right. All right, so with that, we will, of course, I'm sure, pick it up all again Friday. Not sure what we're going to talk about, so make sure you guys check out the channel. Look for your notifications. If you want to be notified as to what we're talking about when we're going out live, all you got to do is, after you hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and you'll know when we're coming on. And if you... I'm not really sure how this actually works. I should probably investigate this myself, but you can also click on the bell and then have it personalize programming, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it'll, if we're talking about a certain topic, I don't know. I'll be honest. YouTube creator, and I don't even know. Don't care. All I want you to do is hit the subscribe button and the like button. All right? So with that, I'm Eric Vansel.
I'm Daryl Sanders.
May the force be with you.
Always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the force be with you, always.